Today's guest is Heather, also known as Alora. She is a local San Diego R&B artist, singer, and songwriter. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you do what you do?
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. This is so fun. I sing because, I guess simply put, it's my chosen form of expression. Ever since I was really little, I was into music. Growing up in a musical family, I just had music around. And so everyone around me was expressing through music, and that was found to be intrinsic with me as well. And I've tried other forms of expression, which I wholly enjoy, but I'm always coming back to music. That makes me feel the best and makes me feel the most connected to myself.
You recently had a song out, Magic. What inspired Magic?
Yeah, Magic came out in December. It was my first release, and it was written and sung by me. Magic was originally a poem. So not specifically the words to Magic were a poem, but I wrote a series of poems back in 2021 about a guy and a girl, and it's kind of a conversation. One poem is from the guy's perspective, one poem is from the girl's perspective. And it's basically talking about this guy who had this woman show him the entire world and allowed him to believe that he was the creator of it all, right? So Magic is kind of an open letter to this person from me saying, like, let me show you the stars, like, let me show you your dreams, like, you've already seen it, like, you're remembering, I can see it on your face, right? And so that just attributes to, like, an awakening and kind of like a guide through an awakening. And we think of spirit guides as like these people in the sky, or like an angel that comes to us during an astral projection, or right? But our spirit guides can literally be like this person sitting right here in front of me, right? Or a person that you meet on the street that just told you the exact same thing that you needed to hear, not even knowing your circumstance, right? So it kind of just is an open letter to allow me or whoever is, experiencing this song to be guided to the stars and to be shown all that they are made of, because they're made of the entire world.
That is really beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that makes me really curious about your spiritual awakening. When did that happen?
I think my spiritual awakenings, there's been multiple, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's really hard to pinpoint it down to one, because I'm like always awakening to like new aspects of what is.
Yeah.
And so when people ask me about that, I'm like, okay, which one? I would say the biggest, like the most profound one that I can think of was when I was 20, and I had this realization that the religious body that I thought to be everything was not true, and I couldn't deny it. There was nothing I could like go through in my head. There was no like scripture that I could fall back on that was like, this is more true than what I just learned. And that was like cataclysmic for my ego, right? Because I was born into a very Christian family, going to church every Sunday, singing on stage, like going on Wednesdays, multiple days a week at church. So like the word of God was my absolute truth. Mm-hmm. I actually saw the movie Zeitgeist. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's on Netflix, and it basically talks about like Ra and the like Egypt cosmology and like the other ancient cosmologies. The feeling in my body I got when I referenced back to the Bible was not as true as the one that when I referenced what I had just learned. And I've always been a pretty intuitive person, and I just couldn't deny these other like spiritual laws and like the laws of the universe. They made more sense to me than like the holes that I'd already poked, in the religion. Where growing up in it, you try to internalize it and see how much you believe, but a lot of times the people around you influence that. It's almost like the collective consciousness of the people you're with makes the truth heavy, like more weighted. But even with that, me being the only person that learned what I had just learned, I just couldn't deny it. So then I started researching, and all that I learned was so like, it was already within me. Like I knew it to be true without even having anyone validate me, and that I didn't get with religion. I had to get the external validation. I had to keep coming back to, okay, is this right? Are you sure? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? Like, am I making a mistake? I remember telling my dad when I was like 12 years old, crying to him, being like, I'm scared I'm gonna go to hell. Like, how can I not go to hell? I didn't fully even understand the way that that religion played out how the universe was. But just in these 20 minutes of this movie, and then my research beyond that, was so much more true to me than what I had learned my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very tumultuous, crazy, emotional time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What's another really profound experience you've had with like a realization?
I mean, how fringe do we want to go? Like, do you mind if I tell you something pretty fringe? Like,
yeah, go
like
for
maybe
it.
like an extraterrestrial experience?
Yes,
or...
I was actually just about to ask you. Yeah.
So I've always been like privy to like space, and I've always liked aliens, and I've always, you know, like loved, like I wanted to go and always look up the stars. Like I wish I could go to another planet. Like why? You know, in religion we never talked about that. That's actually like against what someone would advise, like in the church if you ask them about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it always just like interests me, and I started having a lot of dreams about aliens, and then I learned that, you know, they are also part of the universal consciousness, and we can actually, there are some that are benevolent, right? And we are tied to them maybe in past lives. I had a couple past life regressions kind of preceding this, where I experienced past lives on a different planet. So, you know, I knew that to be true because I was having a fully visceral experience. So I started asking to go on a ship, basically. You know me, just always going for it. So I was like, I want to go on a ship. And I used to live in Portland, and so I would sit on my balcony and be like, I want to see a ship. Like, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to, you know, I'm not afraid. Like, I just want to see it. And I went out there like 3 nights in a row.
Were you alone?
Yeah, I was alone, and I had my notebook, and I was just like, I'm going to see something. Like, I fully believed it. I was calling it in. I was like visualizing where they were, like in the cosmos, and kind of like, you know when you drop a pin, like, on your iPhone?
Yeah.
I was kind of, like, mentally dropping a pin for them, like, where I was, even though I'm sure they already knew, right? But, like, I was kind of, like, calling them in. And then all of a sudden, when I was living in Portland, there's, like, the West Hills from my balcony. And these 3 lights just rose up. And I'm looking around like, is anyone else seeing this? Like, this is crazy. And it's completely silent. And it just rises up and then goes like inches over the top of my building. And I was like the second from the top floor down, so I was very close to it.
Yeah.
I was just awestruck. So I like went out there the next night and like wanted to see another one. And I'm just like, you know what? I want to go on one. I got to be more specific, you know? And so it was Christmas night, 2020. I was actually at a friend's house. My family's up north, and I wasn't able to go home for Christmas because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So my friend invited me up to her mom's house in Orange County, and we stayed the night over there. But that night, I got like a call to just like to wake up, you know. And there are these bright lights, and I just felt like I needed to merge with it. And I was kind of like in the astral. I felt like I was in the astral because it was so surreal and like nothing like this physical reality that I had ever existed in. And then I went into this beam of light, and it just felt like love was permeating every cell of my body. I don't know how to explain that or relate that to the physical world, but like if the feeling of like the person you love so much was like hugging you and they like melted into you, that's like the feeling of like the beam carrying me up. And I knew at that point I was going on a ship. Like, I just knew. And so I'm like going up. I didn't want to open my eyes because I really felt like my central nervous system was going to blow. Like, it was so much energy. And I remember feeling myself like sitting on the floor like of the ship. Like, I was going up in that beam, and then all of a sudden it was solid under me. And I opened my eyes, and it was like the brightest, like, if someone had like a super bright, like golden colored light, like flashing in your eyes, that's literally how it felt. I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing this. And there was another girl next to me, and I didn't know who she was. But this being in kind of like a hooded cloak type of thing came up, and he just kind of like waved me up, and I just like stood up, and he like addressed me, and he was actually like a cat humanoid.
Ooh.
So that's like the Lyran beings in like the Lyran constellation. They're like humanoid cat hybrids, and they're actually like our ancestors from, you know, millions and millions of years ago who still exist in other dimensions outside of our space and time.
Yeah.
And so I knew about them, and I like had been kind of connecting with them in the astral, but not really like in the physical yet. So it's like my first time experiencing them.
Yeah.
And on the ship, we walked by this mirror. And the girl was with another being. She left. Then he took me into this like big room, and it was like these fountains. If you like imagine like the Renaissance and like the marble like walls with like the fountains coming out of them, except for they were made of like golden diamond light. That's like the only way I can describe it. It's like the most sparkly. It was like golden light, like glitter, but it was not water, it was light. And he bathed me in it. Like, he told me to go into it and just like let it wash over me, because he was saying that through environmental factors on Earth, as well as like the 5G and all of like the electromagnetism that's like destroying our DNA, it's also like that on the ship. And so he was saying that like the golden diamond light puts our DNA back together in the sequence that it's supposed to, because especially the 5G like tears our DNA apart. And I was like, okay, cool. And it felt like love. It felt so good. And then I woke up and I was just like, I literally just went on a ship. Like, oh my, and I'm just sitting there in bed like, did that just happen? Like, you know, you start to feel like a little bit crazy, because if it's a first time experience, you know, but then I have to backtrack and realize, okay, I asked for this. Yeah. This is part of who I am. This is part of my history as a spiritual being of light, right? I'm just here on Earth to experience physicality and the full range of emotions and the five senses, right? This is the only place we can do that. And so I had to realize, okay, doubt is probably one of the lower emotions that we can feel on Earth, you know, and I'm just kind of like retracing what I know, and then coming to the realization that like, yeah, that really happened. I've had, you know, astral experiences that didn't feel that visceral. And so that shifted an awakening in me, where it was like, okay, I am connected to these beings. I am not just of this earth. Yeah. And, you know, to go and run and tell your Christian family that, you know,
Did you do that?
You're going to get a lot of backlash. I understood the gravity of that, just interjecting that belief, like a daughter to a mother or father, right? They're going to want to believe you. But then their whole life was kind of like how my earlier life was. But their life is still like that. You know, they're still rooted in the church. That is their religion. And extraterrestrials and traveling to other planets and going on spaceships in the night is probably not something they're going to like believe right away. And I didn't want them to doubt me and stuff. So I kind of like plant seeds with my family. I've been doing that for a couple of years. Yeah. Like when something comes on the news about the UFOs, like I'll ask them about it or whatever. Or like I told my dad I saw a UFO. I did. I was like, I saw a UFO. And he's like, for real? And I'm like, yeah. And then after like a year, I keep planting seeds, and he goes ahead and tells me that, oh yeah, when I was in the military, I saw one too. And I'm like, okay, tell me the thing. Yeah. And so he told me that he went out into this field like in the night with like his friends, and they went back to like wherever they were staying, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna like TMI, but like use the restroom like in the forest or whatever. But when he was by himself, he said that a bright light came right over him, and he's like, there were no like lights in the area. It was like very remote where they were at, and he looked up at it, and then all of a sudden it just went up and got smaller and smaller and smaller. It's fast, like it was just like a light went up, but it was shining right on him, and he said it was completely silent. And that was like kind of the key that told me it could have been a UFO, because they're completely silent. I mean, the one that I experienced, both of them that I experienced, they didn't make a sound. And from what I know about extraterrestrial like spaceships and stuff, they use magnetism to fly around, which would be silent. So it tracked, and I was like, okay, like Dad, you had like an ET experience. Like that's valid, like that's real. You're not crazy for that. So I'm kind of like, you know, teaching them and allowing them to be more okay with those experiences, because I don't know, maybe other family members have had experiences, but they're too scared to share in fear of being called crazy. Yeah, exactly. Which I've had my fair share of, like at the beginning of my awakening. I wanted everyone to awaken. You know,
Me
I was like,
too,
you guys gotta know all this. Like,
I think
this
that
happens.
crazy.
Yeah.
For sure. I feel like in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I was kind of more forceful, like with my family. I'm like super just sharing everything, all my experience. I'm like, life is so amazing. Like your life can be so much better. Yeah. Because the things that I felt were just more beautiful than what I felt before. So like I wanted everyone to have that experience. Exactly. But like as I've grown and got deeper into my spiritual practices, I'm like, okay, like no one needs to have a spiritual awakening. I don't need to like force things or share everything with everyone. Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I believe that like we have our own divine timing and when we're supposed to awaken, when we're at that point. I feel like we're always kind of like becoming more aware. We use the word awakening a lot, but it's like almost just like opening up our consciousness. We're becoming more aware of really the true universe and like what does exist and like how it all works. And I feel like there's kind of like a tipping point to when they're ready and can handle that full awakening, because
as we awaken, we experience all of the good, right? But in like a dualistic reality, there's that deeper level of the negative that you get to experience as well. And a lot of times people will maybe get forced awakened or something of that nature, and then they start experiencing the negative side of that scope of awareness and the positive. But when you open up the positive, you also get the other side of the negative. And sometimes it's a lot to handle for them. And I've definitely experienced that, like in a friend, where I was like, no, awaken. And then they were experiencing all this like more negative stuff. And so I realized that, and I like kind of pull back, but also guide them, right? If I felt like they were ready or they're coming to me for more information, I'm going to give it to them. But I'm not going to hang out with them on the first date and be like, did you know that our country and our world is controlled by elite reptilians? Like, you know, they're actually shape-shifting right now as we speak. Like, you know, like they're going to freak people out. They're like, and they probably won't talk to me again. So there is like a sense of like sensitivity and compassion going into it, and kind of I've learned to plant seeds, but if they don't bite, kind of leave it, and then they will come to you, because if they trust, you know, you're living your truth, and they're like, oh my God, Lonnie knows about this thing. I've had this experience. She told me about this. I thought she was crazy at first, but like I had this experience too. They're gonna come to you.
Yeah, like when we plant seeds, we might get some type of negative feedback at first, but then down the line, I find that some people will come back to you and be like, oh, I've changed my mind, or things are different now. And that's why like I feel like I can't be so hard on myself if someone does kind of have that like immediate like rejection.
Yep, exactly. I mean, one of the most heartbreaking things, a good friend of mine, I was like, you got to know about all this stuff. Like there was one day, I think it was like 2019, this video just like popped up on my TV. Like my TV wasn't even on. And it was like a message from like the Pleiadian Security Council or like some shit like that. And I was just like, this rings true. So I call my friend, I'm like, Selena. And she's like, I'm worried about you, you know? And so that's one of those rejections where you're like, okay, you're excited, you want to tell your friend, yet they're not ready to receive it, and that's okay. It's something that us as spiritual, maybe teachers or like way showers, we have to understand, is that not everybody is gonna be at that point where they're ready to know all that you know, right? You can still love them through it, but it's exciting, yet they have their own timing.
As you were talking about your ET experience, I remembered a story. I think you told me about Haiti. Can you retell that story?
Yeah, so this is 2012, to a Christian high school. And one of my best friends, she went on a mission trip to Haiti and just fell in love with the children there and saw that there was a huge need for support and maybe like an orphanage for these kids that are running around parentless. I mean, it was so sad there, it still is, but she was experiencing things like just seeing kids, 2-year-olds, like left alone. And she said that the parents were so poor, they would rather not watch their child starve to death, but just abandon them. And so there was a lot of kids in this case where they had no parents, their parents had just abandoned them. She found a 2-year-old like literally taking care of like an infant sister of hers. And like a 2-year-old taking care of an infant, like that, it's just so crazy to me. So her heart was there with that. And she actually fell in love with a native Haitian man, and they wanted to start an orphanage together. And so I like raised a bunch of money. I did like benefit concerts around my hometown and like car washes and stuff. And I got all this money together and didn't ask, told my parents that I was going to Haiti. And their initial reaction was like, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, I raised $9,000. So a lot of times when I like wanted to do something like risky or had this big ambition about something, my parents are just like, yeah, if you can do it, you know? I was always that kid that like had to set it up right to the point of like, okay, Dad, this is the address. This is where you got to take me. I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Being 19 at that point, I was like, I just got to do it all myself. I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. So I set up like benefit concerts at different churches around the area and like saved all my money from working. And I had raised all this money and I bought my plane tickets, and they're like, she's doing it. She's going to go. So I went to Haiti, and that was really the first time I had experienced, from like a Christian perspective, magic. So I never really believed magic was bad, right? But a lot of people like in the Christian faith think it's, you know, the work of the devil, right? whether it's, lack of awareness of what magic truly is, or it's, programming, whatever the case may be. I experienced black magic is what it was. So the Haitian people, I don't know if it's their religion, but they utilize voodoo, right? So black magic. And they're very jealous people in the sense that they believe like the missionaries that come there like are only helping some people and not helping others. And the orphanage was built on an island off the coast of Haiti called Loganov. And Loganov was very poor. And it's like kind of like a mountainous region, like most islands are. And up in the hills, they built this orphanage surrounded by a giant concrete wall and had 24-hour security. They hired like 2 local men to like watch the doors switching off. And one day, it was like the second day I was there, we were heading down to the beach area in the truck. I was sitting in the back of the bed of the truck, just observing everything. Like, this is new to me. This is really cool. This woman comes out of a tent. And by tent, I mean like literally like 2 sticks and a tarp. That's what they were living in. Like, you hear about these tent cities, and that's really all that they had. And she comes out, and we had passed her, but I was sitting in the back of the truck, and I look over, and her face morphed like a filter that would like spin your facial features, and like her eyes shifted over, and her mouth was twisting, and her nose moved over here, and I'm just like trying to shake my head to see if this is real, and it's still happening, and I'm just like stunned, and I like tap Katie, and I'm like, yo, her face just like morphed, and she's like, "We'll talk to you like about it when we get down there." So when we got down to the bottom, Bernard is her husband, and he had a conversation with all of us about the voodoo that goes on, and invited us to like keep your faith in God, and like all of those things,
Wow.
hold the light.
Yeah.
And even though the religion of Christianity isn't something that I follow, like the rules of it, I still do believe in the divinity of God and the power of light, right? The power of love. And I just intrinsically kind of like surrounded myself in a bubble of white light and just knew that I was going to be protected. And I think the lack of fear there was what allowed me to stay there longer. But after that, this wasn't the first example. After that, we went back up to the orphanage, and in the night, myself and her sister looked up and we saw black, like the sky was black, but you could see all the stars and stuff, but it just covered in blackness. And then we're like waiting, and we hear like, it sounds like someone chopped down a tree. And Bernard comes in and he's like, "Pray, let's pray." And I'm just like, why are we praying? But like, okay, let's pray. I did get scared of that black thing. And I asked after, and it was a crow, a 20-foot like wingspan crow. And that's like a warning sign that they can like conjure up. And so they explained to me that it's probably because they're jealous. They're seeing more missionaries, quote unquote, come in, because they saw a couple white women, right, come in that they had never seen before, getting trucked around in and out of this orphanage. And they're probably thinking, okay, they're helping these people, and they're not helping us. They're right outside this wall, and they're not helping us. And there have been stories of people coming to Haiti. I mean, it's beautiful. This island is absolutely gorgeous in the Caribbean, like close to Barbados and Jamaica. And just a gorgeous place to be, and it's undeveloped. So you can imagine people with money would come there and like want to build a vacation home, right? Because it's you can go up in the mountains, there's no one around. But we were going around, we're seeing all these unfinished structures. Like they would get like the concrete done, and then it would just be like no one there. And I asked, and they said the native people with their magic have either driven these people out, or they've gotten really sick and died. And I'm just like, okay, this is real. Shortly after that, this isn't really black magic, but it is something that happens, when you go to third world countries sometimes, hopefully not to anybody else, but we were attempted to be taken by some locals.
Wow.
They came in the middle of the night when Katie and Bernard were not there. The security guard came to us and was like, they want who's inside, or they're gonna, take them. And so we had to very sneakily get away in the middle of the night with, thank God, a friend of Bernard, a local there who was highly respected. And he silently got us off the top of the mountain on his motorcycle. And then we got all the kids out, and then we stayed somewhere else. And when I told my mom that,
Oh man.
she was like, I like go back and forth. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have told my parents, like I should have. But they were like, come home now. And me being me, I'm like, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I straight up told him no. And my feeling was like, I came here for a mission.
Yeah.
My heart has been in this. I did so much work, and I'm like in love with these children now, and I'm seeing the need, and like I want to help. I came all this way to help. Like, I am protected by the light of God. And I stayed.
How long did you stay for?
I stayed there for like 2.5 months.
Okay.
I wanted to stay there for 6 months.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving because I got dengue fever.
Oh, wow.
So the hurricane came through during the time that I was there and like busted the one water line we had. We were drinking like chlorinated like sachets of water like from med packs being dropped on us. Wild stuff.
That is a really intense entire trip.
Crazy intense entire trip. But when I was there, it was so crazy. Like I wasn't wanting to go home.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if it was like my love for like excitement and like pushing through challenges, but I think it was like the mission and just like the love for the people. And that was my first time out of the country in my life. And so just like being so enthralled in like how these people live their life and just like the way that the culture is and also the love for the kids and why I came there. Yeah. So I told them no and I stayed, but then I ended up getting pretty sick and it probably wasn't safe for me to stay there anymore. I ended up going to one of their like local hospitals. I had a questionable injection. It was like intramuscular, you know, like how they do. I was feeling sick. I don't know if it was like something for like a flu symptom. I had no idea what it was. My Haitian Creole was very small. Yeah. I had studied French in high school and then I had my little Haitian Creole book along with my Rosetta Stone, which within an immersive environment does get you pretty far. Mm-hmm. But within the hospital environment, I mean, it's a blur to me. They gave me an IV drip and I just remember like looking over and like speeding up the drip so I could get out of there.
Oh man.
And I got out of there and I met back up with Bernard and he took me back to the orphanage and I just remember being like, I gotta go. My vision is not 100%. I'm losing water. Like it's nobody's business. There's not a reliable water source. I just had to come to the point where it's like, okay, ego, right? Like I want to do this mission. I want to help. I want to right? Mm-hmm. Or like I need to love myself through this. I need to like think about myself and not put myself in danger because if I'm not here, I won't be able to help anybody. And also my parents are freaking out. You know, everyone that loved me was freaking out. And I'm just like, not stone cold, but I'm just like, I'm fine. I can do it. I can make it, you know? Yeah. And I went on a boat from the island of Loganov to Port-au-Prince, where the only airport was. And I got inside what they call a tap-tap. A tap-tap is like a 15-passenger bus that holds like 40 people. And I was like sitting on someone's lap with like my suitcases and just a wild experience. And I just remember like landing in Houston and being like I felt like I was in a different world. So relieved because I was like feeling so sick, but yet like seeing the duality between just few thousand miles from where I am and where civilization for me is, there's this other place where humans who are part of God are living in this like terrible environment, you know, and just like seeing and feeling the duality of it helped me have a lot of compassion and gratitude for, you know, my position in life and the people around me and how I get to just wake up in the morning and flip my lights on and flush my toilet and take a hot shower and like go to Starbucks or like open my cabinet and there's food instead of like eating one portion of beans and rice this big. So having that experience really helped me love myself and the people around me and be grateful for all that I have received.
Wow, that is so amazing.
Yeah.
One of my questions was actually going to be it was going to be specific towards your music, but it could just be generally in life because I love everything that you've done in life and like I love your you can do it attitude. And it was going to be what's been your biggest challenge and what did you learn from it?
Like in life?
Yeah.
I think my biggest challenge in life has been not listening to outside voices telling me what I can and can't do. And it's not like in like a rebellious nature, but like I know that I can be and become something that the people who were advising me didn't believe was possible in a lifetime successfully, or that maybe they didn't believe I could because maybe they hadn't. Yeah. You know, a lot of times parents have a trajectory that they want to see you on because they want to see you be successful. So they have an image of success. Yeah. And they want to instill in you, like, for example, say it's go to college, get a career, get married, retire at 50, put money into your 401k, you know, and then live on that maybe that's like the safe route for them. And that like wasn't doing it for me. And so I dropped out of college about a year in to start a business. That really freaked my parents out. But they also knew that like if I say I'm gonna do it, like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know, and there have been times where like I did it and they're like, Heather's gonna do it, like she's gonna at least try, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I started this business. And they're like, oh, okay, how's that going? And I'm like, good. And that portion of me doing things like that and then doing more things like that past the threshold of what they could advise me on, it was hard because it's almost like I had to do it myself, right? And they couldn't advise me on it, so it was, I'm sure, frustrating for them because they didn't know if I was going to be successful or not because they didn't have experience in it. So I think me just kind of going my own way and being sure that if I had the vision for it and I really believed in myself and I worked for it, that I could achieve anything. And I have, and them coming to that realization in the recent past of like, wow, you're inspiring us now versus like, what are you doing? Are you safe? Like, are you okay? How are you living? How are you surviving this way? Like, you're not doing what we laid out for you.
Yeah.
And me also being like, they've told me this path is successful, but I know that doesn't do it for me. Like, that doesn't feel like me. I feel like there's something more and so much more. And, I moved away from home in my early 20s and never went back. Obviously going back for like, holidays and, staying connected, but me just kind of like living my life on my own terms and having the faith that it's going to work out because of the fact that I believe it can, probably has been my biggest challenge within my like physical life. But it has turned out to be quite an amazing thing that I've held the light for myself and just been like, no, I can do it. I guess the biggest takeaway is like, I can do it because I think I can do anything. And I think just because I think I can do anything, I can.
Yeah, that's your favorite quote, isn't it? Whether you think you can or you think you can't.
You're right.
You're right. Yeah.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super hard. Like, I mean, it was a span of like 3-4 years where it was like, are my parents mad at me? Like, because there was nothing, I'm doing these things like, oh, wow, Heather, that's great, but it wasn't like on the path that they thought, like me telling my mom on the phone, like I'm dropping out of college. Like, what? I'm starting this business. This business is going great. Now I don't have the business anymore. And now I'm going to go move. I moved to Hawaii, right? Because I wanted to. Because I was living in Portland, it was raining so much, and I had family in Hawaii, and so I wanted to move to Hawaii, and told my dad I'm moving to Hawaii, and he's just like, okay, because they knew me. They're like, she's gonna do it. Like whether she fails or not, like she's gonna do it.
I can definitely relate. When people ask me why I moved to San Diego, my answer now is just because I felt like it. And they usually expect like, oh, because of work or like in a relationship. It's like, no, I just felt like it and I did it. And I think that I can relate to you on that because my family definitely sees me as when I say I'm gonna do something, I'm just gonna do it. So I went to Thailand in, like 8 years ago. And my dad was like, do not go, you're gonna die, someone's gonna kidnap you. And I just did it because it's like that thing that we know, we need to do this thing. Like there is no not doing it.
Right.
I've already decided.
Right, whether or not we know the reason or if we can explain it to family, we're gonna do it. Yeah, I even I received hate mail from a family member going to Haiti, just being like, you're gonna die. Basically like, do you wanna live past 19? Like, just being like, I'm sure it came from a place of love, but the delivery was like trash. Sorry to say, but it was just like, and even with that, I was just like, no, like I'm gonna go because we can't not.
Yeah. There's just something in us. And now we're both on this journey. You're on this music career and this music path. And like now I've started this video podcast. And there's not a lot of people that I feel like I can relate to who I edit videos all the time. Like I'm like scheduling podcasts. Like I am dedicated to this project. I am working on it all the freaking time. And there's just not many people who understand that like there's nothing else I'd rather do.
Yeah. I can relate to that with music. I quit music for 10 years. So growing up in a musical family, going to a music school in my like early school days up to like middle school. And then my little claims to fame, I did a brief time on American Idol and X Factor. And then after that, I quit. And the reason for that was all my family members are musical. And they had to kind of quit to support their families. They didn't make it to the level that they thought they would or that they wanted to. And so I had this program instilled in me that was like, don't quit your day job, you know, because they didn't experience success easily within the music industry. And so they wanted to maybe protect me. But what that did was it created a program that said it's very difficult to become successful in music. Don't ever bank on it. Always have a job, right? Like always have a job, you know? So it's like, don't believe that I can do music full time was the program, even though I wanted to believe I could and I wanted to do that. But I had this program playing in my mind, whether I knew it or not, that said like, don't give up your steady source of money because you're not gonna make money doing music. So growing up, I was obsessed with American Idol. And living in a small town, I thought that was the only way you could make it. You had to get discovered, right? Like the era of like the Disney Channel kids, right? You go to the mall and someone discovers you type of thing. That's how I thought it was. That was my only scope of like how you make it. And so getting voted off both of those shows, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna make it. I was so shattered, right? The shame. And it was the shame around like my personal performance, the shame around like my family was like, you know, are you gonna do it? But also knowing my family like maybe didn't believe I totally could. For sure they wanted that for me. If that happened, they would be so happy. But on the back end, like not fully believing it could because it didn't for them. So I was like, I guess I gotta just like focus on business and like make money and like make something of myself outside of music. So I started a business, and then just last February, I went to Seattle with my cousin, and her and I grew up doing music together. I mean, to the point of, you know how you like have a lemonade stand when you're a kid? We sold songs. So like we literally put a table at the top of her driveway with a banner, and it was like, songs, $1. Like we'll see whatever song you want. And I think we wrote some songs in there like national anthem, like probably like some Britney Spears, probably a Backstreet Boys with a dance. Like, you know.
I love this.
And so people would pull up and we would sing them a song. And so her and I have like rich history in music, and we would write our little songs together. And so we went to a concert in Seattle, February 2022. I just got my real estate license. I was just kind of like, what am I gonna do next? Decided on real estate, just got my real estate license, just got connected with a great brokerage, with an awesome broker. I was really excited about it. But then I go to this concert and looking at this girl, living her dream, living her life, having the most fun ever. The crowd is connecting with them. It's just the energy in there is just like so amazing. Everyone's just vibing, bopping around. And I'm like, what would I want to do more than this? And I'm like, nothing. I'm thinking like, do I want to do real estate more than this? I'm like, no. This is what I want to do. Like, I'm going to sing again. This is what I want to do. I got back on a Wednesday and I was like, I got to sing. Like, I'm going to sing in public. I'm going to face my fear. I'm going to sing in public for the first time in 10 years. And I have a friend that lived in San Diego at that time, had known me for 10 years and had never heard me sing. And so I went to an open mic at Trilogy and I sang for the first time, and it was just like, the crowd, I saw phones coming out, and like, you know, it was just like the validation of like, I am on the right trajectory. I didn't feel shameful. I didn't feel like this was the wrong thing for me. I just felt like my soul was being able to be expressed for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it was, that's just what started it all. And from there, everything has fallen into place because I believe that, you know, everything happens in divine timing. That was not the time for me to be interjected into the music industry. I didn't know about all the corruption in the music industry back when I was 16, 17, 18, right? I think back about how vulnerable I was and how like ambitious I was to just make it. And that was probably a very dangerous environment for me. So I think back to how like, I don't regret not, you know, making it back then. And I'm so happy that my music career is taking off the way that it is now, and how fast it has taken off, how the universe just put everything in my place once I decided, right? Once I overcame that huge block of the shame and like the guilt and like not being good enough. Like I wasted 10 years. Like, how am I going to make up that time? Like, time doesn't exist, honey. You know, like I had to remember like, whenever you are meant to be in the place that you're supposed to be for your dream, it will come to you, and you will have that realization, and there will be that feeling that we've both shared of, I can't not do it. Yeah. Right. And so, you know, then I tell my parents, Just kidding, I'm not doing real estate. They're like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna pursue music. And they're like, you can't like do both. And I'm like, well, I just got offered this job at this great recording studio, in North County, and it's gonna help my music career, like just being in the space of being surrounded by artists, right? Being immersed in the industry. They say like the more you think about something, the more it concretes into reality, right?
Yes.
The more you're around a certain environment or a certain energy, that energy will be magnetized to you even greater. And it's so true. And so me knowing that, not really knowing how to explain that to my parents energetically, it's just another one of those things like, trust me, like this is it for me. All these feelings in the past have panned out the way that I hoped that they would, the really strong ones where I went maybe like against what they were saying, or I didn't do it for them, right? I did it for me. So just another one of those things where it's like, this is the path. And it's been proven true ever since. And it's a really good feeling.
I do want to say that your voice is amazing.
Thank you.
And I wish that I had another word for amazing. Oh my gosh, I guess tears just want to come up because it feels like it was a gift given to you when you were born and in this lifetime. And it's a gift for you to share it with people. And it's truly, truly so beautiful. Like, I'm just really grateful that you're stepping into this, and not only are you making music, but you're sharing all of the things that you believe in.
Thank you.
It's so profound.
Thank you. I really believe that like we have these truths, and sometimes it's hard to sit and have a conversation with somebody. Like maybe spoken words or like conversation isn't somebody's strongest form of expression, but if we can tell a story about it through music, first of all, the frequencies of sound, right, are so impactful. And then every word has frequency too, and that's impactful as well. And sometimes it's easier to deliver those emotions of what you felt, right? Because we have these profound experiences and we have these intrinsic truths. But how can we share the feeling of truth with someone by just being like, I saw an alien, I swear, and they're like, okay. But like, what was the feeling that you had, right? I felt like I was unlimited. I felt like I was made with pieces of the entire world all within me. But then I sit here and I look at you and I'm like, I see me, right? And like everyone that I meet, and they use the word resonate all the time, right? I feel like I'm seeing, if I was made of a mosaic, right? And it's like, this piece of me is this person. And it's like every aspect of the people I encounter, if they were all combined into a person, it would be me. Right? And so like to share the truth of that music, like you said, I was born with this gift, like that's going to be the way that I'm able to deliver it the most effectively. And there's music about all sorts of things, but I feel like right now in the world, people are having these like truth moments, right? Where they're not like able to like have a conversation and be validated. So if they can listen to a song and maybe have a conversation outside of space and time with me, it'll help them feel that validation and know that they're not crazy, even though the world is telling them that they are, or that they're so distracted by all of these like fear-based events happening in the world right now, but they know this truth, but no one's really validating it. Like if they can be impacted by a piece of music that does validate them, like that's all. Like that's all I need, like I've helped in that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And my last question is, if you can say something to every person in the world, what would your message be?
That is a really good question. I would say that the world is completely malleable. It's completely workable to whatever you want it to be. It's completely customizable. Honestly, we are here on earth to experience, right? Point blank. There's no good, there's no bad. We are here to experience, and we can actually experience anything that we want. The key is just that we have to believe that we deserve it. And we are divine beings here to experience. So it's not like we came here with a debt, right? Like in some religions, we're born in debt. We're not born in debt. We're all divine sparks of God. And so in this existence, we can experience any aspect of this existence because that is the purpose of the human, other than connecting with other pieces of God that are experiencing, right? So I would say that you can have whatever you want. You can literally have whatever you want. There's nothing, if you want to experience having a crazy mansion in the hills, then start researching pieces of mansions in the hills. Start watching real estate YouTubes of people walking through mansions in the hills. You're going to start talking to people and they're like, oh yeah, I have this mansion in the hills. You're going to start noticing mansions in the hills. This is just a random example, right?
Yeah.
But the more you think about something, and like it's all up in the idea realm, the more you think about something, the more it comes down into physicality. And that happens is because we have that creator spark. We are pieces of God. God is the creator, right? And I don't talk about God as if like it's like this man in the sky. I talk about like the all-encompassing source of light and power that is the universe, fractaled off experiencing itself, right? So if it is all us, if we all started as this piece of light and it fractals off as a planet and then the planet fractals off as people or whatever they fractal into, it all stemmed from the same source. And so it all is the same. So we're just calling in those pieces of the universe to experience and interact with. So if you don't think you deserve this nice new car, then you probably will experience a reality where you don't get it because you believe you don't deserve it. But if you start believing that you are everything, so you just call in what you want to experience, it'll come in faster than you ever imagined.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh.